Awesome.
Thank you very much. Okay, welcome everyone to our second guided session. And really like to welcome you all for being here. I know that, one of these things when we focus on learning, especially when we learn with our work and the work we do, um, allocating the time and prioritizing the time is always a challenge in itself. So I really applaud you for being here. Now, just to get us into this session and to follow on from what we were learning last time we were together, we focused on revenue opportunities. But as we thought about these opportunities, there are resources we thought of that we automatically come to mind, and there may be resources which we didn't actually think we had, but have now come to realize we have. So today's icebreaker is about if you think about your revenue opportunities, the opportunities you saw, if you think of any one resource that you already have and you didn't realize that you had until you came to the session, or you didn't fully realize the benefit of that resource until you came to the session. So we're going to run this. If you can uh, run popcorn style, we'll just ask someone to share. Maybe you want to think about this for a minute. So I will give us 30 seconds to think, and then I would like anyone to unmute and start us with the session. Okay. So it's one resource that you already had as an organization, but you didn't really realize that that resource was of benefit. So we'll start with our 30 seconds now for us to think about it for a while, and then we will ask for your thoughts around it. So I'm just putting on my timer. So the 30 seconds remains 30 seconds. But yeah, unless there's someone who's ready to go without and doesn't need more time, you can go ahead. Okay, 10 more seconds, and then we start with input. So have we got any volunteer for the first who'd like to share with us one resource that you already have that you did not realize you had, or even a resource that you thought about but you now see it differently? I don't know if I'm audible. Maybe I can ask Kutlo if you can, as the first person that came on, maybe I can ask you if you have any what you'd like to share as part of the icebreaker. If you can unmute. Okay, would anyone else like to share one resource that you already have that you did not realize you had? Christopher, I don't know if you have something you'd like to share with us or
Yes, it's good afternoon from here, from Tanzania. Uh,
hi.
my name is Christopher Peter. I'm just working with the Tanzania Early Child Development Network, TechDen, as an umbrella for civil society organization here in Tanzania. And unfortunately, I did not attend the first session, but
Okay.
I come across with the recorded session. So maybe from the last discussion and from my experience, uh, maybe for TechDen now we are implementing the Malaysia Center project, which it's an ECD centers project, which is just focusing to children 2 to 5 years children. So we are here as a part of learning and gaining experience from others what they're just doing in ECD centers. So maybe one resource I can say maybe it can be an availability of local businessmen within the locality, maybe who they can support various materials. It can be in terms of financial, can be in terms of to donate some materials within the ECD centers for the children, or they can be also as a link to other businessmen or other potential people who they can support the ECD centers learning. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's an interesting one about how we use our the local business people in our communities, and finding a way for them to contribute to a need that's so great and often is under-resourced. Um, Naomi, do you have something you'd like to add in terms of one resource? You can unmute and share. Or Rafiat, do you have a resource you can share from your side?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I joined a little late. I think we are trying to answer the question of in terms of a resource that is available around us.
Yes, and
Um,
maybe you didn't realize how valuable that resource is, or you just didn't think of whatever it is as a resource. Yeah, just from any perspective.
yes. Yeah, so what I could think about is um, how so we know, we have been implementing ECD in communities for a long time, and parents, we have been providing parenting sessions, parents have been participating, but we recently in Uganda and Tanzania for the past couple of years, we have been implementing a new model, which is a micro enterprise model, where we are building the capacity of caregivers from the community. And, they are working as professional care workers, and parents are paying for that service. So I think, for the past couple of years, it's been eye-opening how much the parents, if they can be organized well, how much they can contribute for their children's learning, and also these caregivers from the community who may not have very high level of educational background or qualification, but it's possible to empower them and put them on a pathway to become a professional care worker. So I think this is what I can think about, like how we can use the people that we have been working with for so many years, that they can also, contribute in different ways and empowered in different ways.
No, very powerful. I'd just like to ask you a question on your comment. You said if the parents are organized well, what sort of organization, if I can call it that, has worked in your space, or are you thinking of implementing in your space?
So we have been implementing the monthly parenting sessions, and gradually that became a platform for us to not talk about so many other issues. I mean, it's not only parenting, but we at some point we started talking about gender issues, gender-based violence. At some point we started talking about mental health, and then from there using that same platform, we started mobilizing them and saying, you know what, we need to contribute in our children. I mean, not, of course, you are contributing in many ways, but for a better future, for quality learning, and also for this, it's a community effort. Um, it's not only that you're contributing in your own child, but it's a community effort. So we can build it together and make a better future for your children if you contribute. Because it's not, and also I think one thing is very important is showing them how little, it's not a lot of money that they have to contribute to pay the fees, or if they have to contribute in the food. It's very little money. It's so that exercise, I guess, that helps them to be encouraged to invest.
No, I think that's brilliant. Thank you very much for sharing. Welcome, Samuel, to joining us. We were just going around sharing one resource which we either already have that we didn't realize we had, or one resource that we realized we had, but maybe we weren't using to its potential. And I don't know if you have anything you can think of that you'd like to share with the group, but as you think of that, let me ask Naomi if you are ready to share. I don't know if you can hear me and you're able to unmute. Or Kudro, are you able to unmute? Oh, Naomi,
Okay.
excellent. Hi.
Yeah, hi everyone. So what I can just say for now,
Naomi, we seem to have lost you. I don't know if you're still speaking, but I think you're. Can others hear her, or is it just me? Okay. So we'll wait for her. Samuel, do you have anything you'd like to share as we wait for Naomi to come back on?
So thank you so much for the opportunity to share. Either to we were in our program, we're relying so much on volunteers that we were paying, but we had a second look at our program design, and this time we brought in a third resource, which is the community.
Yeah.
This design, the community were to give us volunteers from among them to run our program. And I think that's one resource that's either to we didn't realize and taking advantage of. Thank you so much.
No, thank you so much for sharing that, Samuel. Very insightful, because I think, we often, because we are organizations who are trying to help a community, often the extent to which we can ask the community to help us help them is always difficult. And it's good if you can identify those things which encourage the community to get involved, because I think that really strengthens the sustainability of the program. So we thought we'd look at one. Hi, Kudro. I can hear, I can see your message online. And you're talking about structured learning to play. That's where your organization is from. Oh, wow. One thing she'd like to highlight, we have employees who can read the room and understand the community, which is especially important for communicating our mandate effectively to rural people. And I think that's very important, not only letting communities speak, but also hearing what they're saying and listening with intent. So thank you very much, Kudro, for sharing. So we'll move on now to the next slide and just review what did we cover last time. So if we recap session 1, some of you, I know you've mentioned, such as Christopher, that you weren't in session 1. That is fine. And I think, Christopher, the great thing you did was to listen to the recording, because that's quite important, as it helps you understand what we learned and where the group is now. So if we were just recapping session 1, I'll just provide a brief overview. So on the 14th of Jan, we met. And really, we were focusing on an introduction. We all got an opportunity to meet each other, see what organizations that we'll be walking this journey with. And then we spent some time trying to unpack the revenue opportunities. That was on the 14th of Jan, and today is the 28th of Jan. So we allow for the sort of 2 weeks for you to internalize what you're learning, work through some of the work, but ideally, the work and things we do here should be things you can go back and do in your organization. So the idea is not to create extra work. And if we go to the next slide, one thing we realize is that when you think about revenue generation streams, there are typically 2 categories. There's new income streams, which are completely new. So you may have not been working with parents, or you may be working with parents and you weren't charging them before. And then they are ways to improve your revenue because you've reduced your cost. Both of these are equally effective. However, in the education space, if we just go on, if you can just click the whole slide, in the education space, what we find is that we can only reduce cost to a certain point without compromising quality. So new income streams are really great because they allow us to monetize existing assets. They allow us to increase what we already have. When you're reducing costs, you can find cheaper ways or smarter ways to source a certain service or get someone to do it. But there's a point at which you may find that any changes in the direction of reduction of costs results in compromising quality. We also, at the same time in the last session, made an agreement to each other. We agreed that when we're here, we will show up, we will be present. We also agreed that we will attend. And although I recognize that there are a few of us online at the moment, I know that there were a lot more people who actually registered to attend this session. So we have had all sorts of challenges around our continent and around the world of late, especially when I think of weather challenges, which has affected most of people's Wi-Fi and systems. So the idea, though, is if you are here, be present, and also share. Please share. There's no right or wrong. The idea is in your sharing, others will also learn. So when we looked at assessing opportunities, we went through a list of many opportunities. People came up with many opportunities. If I remember, we had a list of about 17 different revenue opportunities. Some we had thought of, some we hadn't thought of. But the nice thing, though, we all got an opportunity to get information on what are other ways to increase revenue that organizations are using, which will allow us to learn from. Thank you, Naomi. I'm noting that your network is not stable. That happens. So I think we'll work with what we have. As long as you can continue to put your comments in the chat. And we've also developed, I think, some worksheets that one can write in should you be unable to follow online in the way you'd like. So if we think about assessing criteria or assessing our opportunities, we realize it's important because the opportunities are many and are in different aspects of the work we do. We need to find a way to standardize how we test which opportunity should we work on now and which opportunity should we work on later. It also helps us work out which opportunity should we do vis-a-vis our partners. So we talked about that, and then we also realized that the toolkit encourages 6 different criteria. So part of your work, if you go to the next page, thanks, Priyanka, is today it was really about saying you left the session with many revenue opportunities. You were given the template for the 6 criteria to work through. And so today we're focusing on understanding the feasibility of your opportunities. And this understanding feasibility is based on the information you may have populated into your particular opportunities. And then helping you find ways of prioritizing opportunities such that you test. What I must stress is that we first decide what opportunities are worth doing, then we test. So it's not to say that we list the opportunities, test, and based on the tests that are successful, we make a decision. It's actually very important that we decide before. So if we move on to today's session and we say, how are we going to assess and test revenue growth opportunities? What we thought we would do is actually go through the template. And the purpose of this is to understand and ensure, because this session is about learning and learning how you can use the toolkit effectively, ensure that everyone has a very clear understanding of what type of information should go in a particular segment. So I'm going to move on to the first one. And the 6 criteria, they're basically 2 aspects of the 6 criteria. Like we had 2 aspects of revenue opportunity, we can increase revenue or we can reduce costs, right? Similarly, when it comes to the criteria, there's 2 main buckets. There's is our opportunity, does it have a strategic fit? So does it align with our strategy? So let me give an example. You're running an ECD center, you're supporting ECD centers, and maybe your strategic objective is to accommodate as many children as possible. You may find that the structure you're using or the structures become full quickly. So the opportunity you've identified to open more ECD centers, does it align to your mission? So that because your mission is to have as many children as possible attend early learning or have structured childcare. And then market alignment is about the strategic fit. So the only way we can have true impact as organizations in the communities we serve is when what we are trying to do is aligned to the needs of the community. So I think when Rafiat was talking just now, she also explained that some of the parent activity they had started focused on early learning, but moved into other things. Now, those other things might not be the core of what your organization does, but they must have recognized at some point that parents have a need to engage on gender-based violence and other topical issues which are very important. So they transformed some of their offering relating to the needs of the community. And then operational feasibility is where many of us get stuck and decide whether an opportunity is good or not is based on operational feasibility rather than strategic fit. So of these two, strategic is more important. When you have the strategic fit, you then need to find or develop an operation model that can work within the confines of your things that you have. So work within the capability you have, work within the profitability you have. So what you need to think of, in many cases, we may have aspirations that we as an organization cannot do. How do we find partners or someone that can work with us to do so? So if we go to the key thing or the key point for today or this particular topic, and we think about the next question, if you can just move to the next point on the same slide. When you think about strategic fit and operational feasibility, the question I would like to understand is, as you were working through your template, did you find it easier to provide or complete the aspects of the template that related to the strategic fit, or did you find organizational feasibility easier to complete, and why? So this is a question for the room, and anyone who's prepared to share or is comfortable sharing can share with us what they found easier or more difficult, just so that we can learn and use that experience to learn. Welcome to those of you who have joined us just now. We are just at the beginning of our session. Today we won't be too long, but we are working through the template that we had to develop just to make sure that we are all clear on how to develop it. So would anyone like to say whether they found strategic fit questions easier? What's strategic fit? Mission alignment, target market. That was basically the question on the template. And it's a question of which elements did you find easier to complete and which elements did you find more difficult to complete? Well, I suppose I could ask the question differently. Those of you who have completed your opportunities in the templates, how did you find that experience? Even if you've only completed one or two opportunities, not all opportunities. It's important for us to understand how you found using and working with the template. Okay, Kadim, are you joining us for the first time?
Yeah, hello everyone. Thank you. I'm here to learn from you today because I'm not much in.
Okay. Is there
Yeah.
anyone who was in the last session, or do you have any comment on this? Just when you think about the opportunities, Kadim, you can unmute. Just when you think of opportunities that your organization may have identified, just even if it hasn't been on a formal level, to increase your revenue, do you find it easier generally to address things or think of things that strategically fit with you, or do you find it easier to work with operational environments? And why is that? Just based on your experience, so not recognizing that you weren't in the last session, but just keen to hear from what you are experiencing as an organization. If you can unmute and share.
If I may come in, I feel like, I mean, from our experience, it's both kind of.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's mission alignment with the organization's mission, at the same time what we want to achieve for young children, and their parents. Um, but at the same time, it's market alignment as well, because if it's not aligned with the market, the resource mobilization will not be successful. So we saw that in Tanzania, there's a lot of demand for childcare,
Yes.
and from there, the seed idea came from. Um, and Operational feasibility is something that we had to then take into account, obviously, to ensure profitability, whether it works or not, what kind of business model will work, um, and what kind of capacity do we have. If we don't have, how we can um, find that, or build that capacity within the organization so that we are ready um, to move forward.
Just in terms of that, do you find it as an organization easier to identify what you are capable of doing and what you're not capable of doing? Or how do you find that process? Or is it quite a struggle?
Um, well, some of the things we know, we are aware of our capacity within the organization. Well, some of the things we know that we have been working in this field for a long time. We do have some technical capacity in place. We have people in those particular contexts. So we do have contextual understanding. We have been working globally. We do have some global understanding. But in terms of building capacity in business management, in really the cost benefit analysis. Probably those were the areas that we had to focus a bit on to build our capacity within. So yeah, I think we had to do like an analysis, SWOT analysis kind of, to
Yes, yes.
understand where we already have the capacity and where we don't.
Okay. Thank you so much. Anyone else able to share? Okay. So what I'm going to do is it's quite important that the clarity that Rafiat shared with us, that we strengthen and get that clear about the things we can do, how we can do them, and so forth. And often, what this template encourages us or tests whether or not we can is the fact that it requires us to have data and information. Sometimes that data and information we think we need to research. For many, research is quite an expensive exercise, but the question becomes, when to populate the template, you need information. And so it then tests the strength of your organization's ability to collect information and the information sources it needs. So if we move on to the 6 criteria, we'll talk through each one. And if you think about the first one is, we'll skip this slide because I think we sort of talked to group feedback, is this first one about target audience. It's basically about determining and being able to determine who's your primary audience, who is your secondary audience. Now, for many of us working with children, the laws of our country are very clear about how we engage children and how we communicate to children. So very often, our primary, although the child is the primary benefactor of our services, the person who is our primary target audience is actually the caregiver or parent with whom the child resides, as an example. And secondary may be someone else in the household or even someone else in their similar community. Now, if we think about these questions around primary and secondary, and also about our ability, when we do our analysis, when we complete this, we need to understand how the community behaves. Now, if you think about that question, did you find it difficult to clearly define the primary and secondary audiences for your particular opportunity? If you just think about that, even if it's not specific to the opportunity, just in general, how does your organization have what I would call a way to automatically or determine primary audiences or secondary audiences or target market? If we can hear from anyone, even if you weren't in the last session, if you can just share. Santa, would you like to share how you define, how the organization identifies or defines its target market? I don't know if you're able to unmute. Elisanta? Okay, Elisanta is unable to unmute. Samuel, do you have anything you'd like to share?
Sorry, I couldn't join the last session, so for now I wouldn't want to share anything. Idea.
So the question, the way I've asked the question is quite general because I'm acknowledging that we're not all in the last session, but we want to understand how clearly or how easily how easy does your organization find their ability to identify target market? Is it something that's easy or something that's difficult? Even if you say yes or no, that would be fine. Does anyone want to share if it's a yes or a no?
Okay, so I would share. So for us, it's easy because of the nature of the program we are running. It's easy for us to identify our audience.
Okay, what program are you running, Samuel? Just for purposes of our fellow colleagues online, if you can just share
So
that.
we are running the Teaching at the Right Level program for learners in rural Ghanaian schools.
Oh, really? And have you got anything you can share with us regarding the rural market, how you found it easy to understand the rural market? What one often finds is that in the rural market, the target audience is clear, but the fact that households are far apart makes it difficult to offer a service in a sort of defined area. I don't know if your organization experiences that as well.
Yeah, so we experienced that. It's easy for us to identify our target audience, but because of the nature of the assessment, as you rightly mentioned, there are times that learners do not attend the program on time because of the distances. So they trek long distances to get to the program, and sometimes have to trek long distances back home, and it's a challenge. And also sometimes seasons also affect us. You know, the rural settlements so attached to seasons. So there are seasons that parents want the learners to help them at home, and therefore it also affects our program.
Okay, now I get that because I think the season one also affects travel and so forth. And I suppose when you think about opportunities in this space, is there potentially, when you're in a rural environment, are there any, we talked about local businessmen or local organizations which transport people, and is there anything that you can help to increase the frequency of attendance? Because we know that in as much as we all offer good childcare, we know that childcare to land frequency of attendance is quite important. Okay, so if we move to the next one, thank you so much, Samuel, for sharing that. If we move to the next one, it's about value proposition. So what a value proposition is, it says that, yes, we may all be in the childcare space, we may all be delivering childcare programs, but what makes our program unique and meets the needs of our target audience? So how does our value proposition deliver what it does, create the impact it does because of the way we do it? So I just wanted to ask, in terms of value proposition, which is what makes you unique in the space that you work in, or what makes you, even if you're not unique, you might be similar, but there's something different that you do. Sometimes we think value proposition means completely different, whereas value proposition might be a slight difference. And if you think about this question, is there a challenge in articulating it or understanding how you make your offering unique, or finding the difference in your offering? So I'd like us to talk a bit about that. Anyone can share their experience in general. It doesn't have to necessarily link to last week or the last session. Just sharing, because I think we learned quite a lot when Samuel was sharing about where they operate and how they operate. Kadim, are you able to share? I don't know if you're able to. Hi.
Pardon me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Can you repeat the question?
So the question is, the services you provide in your community, when we want to grow our revenue, we look for something unique about what we're doing relative to others that makes people want what we do. So in your particular community and the program you're offering, do you find it easy to make your program unique, or is it something you find challenging? And if so, why?
Yeah, in my context, I am from Pakistan, and we work in the extreme northern part of Pakistan. So
Yes.
there is, we feel it's not easy because we provide our services to in semi-rural, you can say, semi-urban area, a mix, and mostly they are displaced population. So though the program, the ECD program in particular, we are providing, uh, we can say it is unique because the services we learn from different sources online. We train our teachers in the to deliver the services in a unique way, learning from different organization, different pedagogies in their turn that is unique for the community. But there are a lot of modern and very improved pedagogies for children to offer the services, but in our context that is unique for the community we are serving. But there is at the same time challenges because you were already discussing about the resource generation, sustainability. So that is a bit challenging for us to generate because we are not a funded program. We are doing by our own self and generating from the services
Yeah.
resources. Yeah.
Can I ask you a question about your online teaching? That you said you teach your teachers through an online sort of education program. Is that something that's common in Pakistan, or is that something that's unique?
Yeah, that is unique. That's why I'm calling it unique, because that is not common.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And I suppose our fellow colleagues that are on the call, thank you so much, Kadim. Our fellow colleagues that are on the call, if you think about rural environments, what we can learn from Kadim is how can we conduct training in rural communities using digital? So how have they done it? Like he says, in rural communities all around the world, what we'd call stability of the network is a real issue constantly. So to be able to train people using online platforms is really, really a powerful thing. Thank you so much for sharing, Kadim. If we move to the next one, so we've gone through two. The third issue is what are the key is offering and implementation. So it's about saying in our opportunity, what is the offering and how are we going to implement it? The things we need to talk about and answer are what are the key features or component of our program, as well as then what resources do we need. And so if you think about the explanation that Rafiat gave us at the beginning of the session as she was sharing, in any organization's case, anyone, we just want to hear from you. If you were uncertain about what specific resources or channels you needed to deliver your opportunity, if you could just share with us why you were uncertain. What was making you uncertain? Is there something you needed? Is there, in terms of support or whatever the case may be, if anyone can share with us anything they've been wanting to do to grow, but there are some limitations. Okay, Christopher, would you like to share? I don't know if you have something that you can share just for given the challenges in your space that you know of.
No, maybe later.
Okay. Kudro, Naomi, I know you were having network challenges. I don't know if you're able to unmute now and share. Okay, no one has some challenges. I think it just a note. I hope you've been noticing the templates and things that Priyanka's been sharing online. And these resources are talking to the things we're talking about now. We need everyone to be sure that everyone is familiar with these resources. What I'm going to suggest that, excuse me, if after this session, and as you're working through your documents, any of these questions that are in the green blocks, you find that you're struggling with a certain element and you need input, please do email us. Thank you very much, Rafiat, for joining us. Yes, we will be sharing the recording with everybody. Okay. Moman, thank you for joining us. I know you've just come in. We were just going through the 6 criteria and working on understanding the 6 criteria. And really, I think the questions of the 6 criteria are quite simple. But what we were looking to do in this session is try and understand if there's anyone struggling with any element from an information perspective or anything, so that we can help you with getting your templates as crisp as possible in terms of the information that you use to determine what opportunities you should be chasing. I don't know, Manman, if you want to share anything based on your experience to date. We've gone through 3 of the things, but we've had some general discussion as well. So if there's anything you'd like to share with the team, maybe what you found easy or what you found challenging in the previous exercise. Are you able to unmute? Okay, so we will move on. I think Unman is just getting his things together.
Sorry,
there we
you are asking me. I just joined that. That's why I
Yes.
didn't able to understand that you are asking me. So yeah.
So, but I was explaining that we've been looking at the 6 criteria in detail, really looking more at what people found easy and what people found difficult in the 6 criteria for assessing revenue opportunities. And just wondering if you have anything you'd like to share about what you may have found easy or what you think your organization will find easier to do or what they may find more complex. Because we are learning from each other's challenges and things that what you find easy, others might find difficult, and so forth. Yeah.
I think that community mobilizations is easier things to reach to the participants if we talk about the ECD early childhood educations, because many people do not understand that ECD or early childhood education is important. So when we are focusing on the micro entrepreneur who has their own ECD centers, so they are reaching to the mothers and they have to also collect the children that who will attend their ECD center. So I think community engagement is important to understand that why this service is important and how it will help to the mothers for their livelihood support purposes. Because in Africa, we found that most of the mothers are single parent. So
Yeah.
it's difficult for them to take care of their children. So in that case, this type of ECD early childhood centers helpful for them to take care of their children and give the proper intervention in the early years. Yeah. So I think a community mobilization is a easy things to engage the participants, and
Yeah.
also the resources we provide the resource that means we provide the instrument, we empower them, we guide them. So this type of support also helpful for them. They can understand their potentiality. Yeah.
Ah, nice. Thank you very much for sharing. So I think if we look at this engaging participants, what's important is you find the effective way to engage. So if you are struggling to identify ways to engage or attract your participants, this is really one of the key things where we can learn from other organizations. Some of the organizations one has worked with and worked for, they have found that they were going direct to the community and found that very difficult. And so they've adopted ways of either working through government or through and with community leaders, certain community leaders who are interested, who are able to then help them drive the community interest to the right levels. So if we go to the next one, it is financial sustainability. So as we were looking at all these opportunities and we looked at our growth, was it easy for us to estimate our costs, or is it difficult to estimate costs? So if we think about this question, not so much to only the template, as a collective, do we find the work we do easy to estimate the cost thereof or difficult? Because the principle is the same, whether you're estimating the cost of one thing or you're estimating the cost of the whole organization, that can be equally easy or difficult. Has anyone been able to, maybe you had a costing challenge, not clear on how to cost something, and now you've been able to overcome it and become more sustainable, that maybe you can share with anyone online? Just so we get some understanding of anything. Is anyone able to share some experiences with regard to estimating or determining costs?
Hello, so I'll share. So initially, prior to our pilot, our initial pilot, cost estimation was quite difficult for we had
Samuel,
not gone through the program, and we didn't know
Samuel, we
we
lost
didn't
you.
know some other.
Sorry, Samuel, we
Am I
lost you.
audible now?
We lost you when you said cost estimation was difficult. If you can just start again, because we lost you somewhere along the line, if you don't mind.
So I was saying that prior to our pilot,
Yeah.
we had challenges with estimating cost. But after we successfully went through a pilot, we saw the other costs that we didn't expect prior to our initial cost estimation. Now, things are better. Cost estimation has become a little easier for us because we have gone through a full cycle of our program.
Ah, very
Thank you.
interesting. I thank you, Simon, for bringing that to light. I think one thing that is difficult with costs, estimating costs, is there's so much that we do every day, which is what I could call we are experts in our field. So we work with it all the time. And often we don't realize the costs, which there are many costs we don't see. And sometimes there are true hidden costs, which nobody sees. So I think this is why you will find that as we move to the guided session 3, we start actually working through the Excel template, which was provided in this toolkit. And I know that in some sessions, people have said the template is too complex, it's got too many lines, but the reason it's trying to bring all those hidden costs to the surface. Manman?
Yeah, I just want to share our experience when BRAC is implementing their BRAC ECD micro entrepreneur childcare micro enterprise model in Uganda, Tanzania. So what
Yes.
we did, we tried to identify the core package because which we are providing the support to the micro entrepreneur to set up their own ECD center. So there's a two types of cost. One is the core package. Uh, where we have the rent or their setup cost, indoor and outdoor setup cost. Another is that the technical support cost. So we separated these two costs. So we focus that okay, their core cost is in this amount. Another things is that we are providing them support the first year, but second year they have to take the responsibility to continue the rent, to provide the rent. So what's happened that we emphasize savings methodology. So whatever the amount they are earning, we consider that maybe $100 they are earning. We say that you have to save 45% for the rent saving purposes. So in that way, they are saving their money. So the next year they can take the charge full, running the full center. Their own responsibility will be. BRAC will not help them for that. But what happened that after the 2 years of implementation, this year we are trying to apply cost recovery. Now we are saying that we are saying that the core package where we are providing them rent and the materials cost, these things, we are saying that you have to share the cost. So some small portion, maybe 10% or 15%, they will back to BRAC. So that's the thing. So when we started, we found that the ECT center setup cost is quite high because if we want to ensure the quality, because if it work in the Tanzania, Uganda, Tanzania have their own rules and regulation for that this childcare facility, and we have to follow all those guidelines from the government. So sometimes to ensure those guidelines to maintain the quality, it's take much cost. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that because I mean, it shows that I think there's two things from what you shared with us that are interesting. And one of them talks to what Kudro put here is that when you're trying to determine cost is quite challenging because there are multiple levels and multiple factors. And so one thing that is useful when you are trying to determine the cost of an activity is to think of every little step to that activity. So where do you start? You start by engaging people. There's a cost to talking to people. Let's say you weren't engaging a community, you're talking to one person. Somehow you had to get to that person, start to talk to them about whatever, and then go back to the office. That's a cost. And then maybe while you were talking to them, you gave them a pamphlet. That's a cost, or you gave them something. So we have to start thinking about our costs in every little element. And when we break it down, it becomes easier to see which costs do we actually pay for. Like we already have it in our document or in our business, and we have an invoice. And which costs are maybe a person's effort or time, but that is also a cost. So if we look at Kutla's statement here, is that they had to account for multiple factors: the facilitator fees, learning materials, operational costs, community consideration. And they analyzed these expenses and then they did benchmarking. Once you analyze, you're able to benchmark. And your benchmark is for your community to show your effectiveness. It may not be the same benchmark for another community. So as we move to this third stage, and I love these questions because they're setting us up for the third stage quite nicely. We will start looking at elements of our costing, and as women shared just now, sustaining those costs, if you can understand them with time, especially if you have a micro enterprise, you may be able to start to move from understanding the cost to how do we recover the cost in a model that is supporting people to do what they need to do. Thank you so much both for sharing that. If we move to the next slide, which is the last point, is about the risk. So when you think about everything we do, there's always a risk. The risk and benefits is really more about identifying risks that relate to any element of your opportunity. So there may be, if you say they were in the first session, someone mentioned, I just can't remember who, that we would, there's opportunity that if we want vendors to come and sell at our schools, they pay for space. The risk there would be if there's no vendor in the area that can afford to pay for the space, then that revenue opportunity would be at risk because people can't actually participate. So you want to document what are the risks, what are the barriers, and then what identify of those risks and barriers, which ones can you do something about? So with that, I'd like us to move to the next, before we move on, just before we move to the end, talking about the next session, I want to ask if anyone has any significant risks that they've experienced and they're not sure how to get around the risk. Anyway, it doesn't have to be a new opportunity, it can be a current opportunity, just for learning purposes.
Yeah, can I share?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so one experience from Tanzania, we found that the lady, her name is Helen, and she is doing very good in her micro enterprise. And she is has taken the rented house for that purpose. But what happened that when she is doing well, and she is doing this in their home, so it's not a personal home, it's a rented house, but she is doing well and she is providing the rent to the owner. But what happened that when owner observed that she is doing well, then owner started creating many problems. Maybe we are not, we don't know what the actually reason, but when we talked to the Helen, we found that maybe the owner is jealous and owner wants to set up her own childcare center here. So sometimes it's happened that when you people are doing well and when they are doing their own setup, this is already organized, is already set up. So when he wants to move that place, it's risky for there to collect the children and children will move to that area or not. So sometimes it's happened that community provides support, but sometimes they also face the problem from the community people as well. So renting is the problem if they do not have their own house. So to take the rent and stay here longer period, it's sometimes we found that it's quite challenging from the entrepreneur perspective. But from our organization perspective, we've faced many challenges because timely procurement to the materials, timely start our program, those are the quite challenges. So we calculate the first year experience help us to decide that what we will do in the next year. So in that way, we are learning by doing, we are learning through our disinterventions.
Yeah, I think that risk of renting is a very big one. And I suppose, even if you have an agreement for rental that says 1 year, 2 years, often when things are happening, especially when people are doing well, landlords tend to have a different view, or someone in the community, not even the landlord, might feel differently. And that's one of the things. So when you think of mitigation, that would be how can we mitigate that? What are the things we can do to protect not only our organizations, but also the people that are working and serving the children? So if we move to the next thing, I'd like, Priyanka had an example of a completed opportunity. Maybe Priyanka, you can share that before we move to what we're doing next time. So, and the idea of this is just to show you an example of a completed opportunity and what it would look like. So if you had 6 opportunities, you would typically complete the template 6 times, and therefore, based on that, be able to compare.
Sure, I'm just going to pull up my screen. Maybe I'll zoom in. It's a bit small. I hope everyone can see it now. So we tried working through this template with one example. And this is one of the revenue ideas that had come up in the previous session. The idea here is charging small fees for add-on play clubs or holiday programs as an additional source of revenue for a particular ECD center. We filled it across the 6 sort of buckets that Sunny just ran us through. I'll give you an example of what the target market for this is for us. So the primary market that we defined for this is our parents whose children are already enrolled at the center and who have additional ability to pay some small fees. And the secondary would be families in the surrounding community who may not have children enrolled in the ECD center, but are interested in accessing the center to access some of these holiday programs and play clubs, etc., for their children. In terms of needs and behavior, we thought about how parents who are looking for safe space for their children during school breaks will be interested in this program. Parents who trust the center and the staff might will be interested. People who are willing to pay small but predictable amounts for structured activities, and if there is like strong word of mouth in the community. So those are some of the needs and behavior that we tried to write down for our target audience. In terms of the value proposition, so there are a lot of programs that might be available in the community through other ECD centers, but what we think might be a unique value proposition for our program is a safe, familiar, and a structured space for children to engage in play activities or holiday programs. So this will be slightly different to other informal childcare, primarily because of the focus on structure, the familiarity with the space, and just the cost perhaps being lower than other private options available in the community. To quickly run you through the offering and implementation, so we are envisioning this at the testing stage as a 3 to 5 day play club during holidays with activities around art, stories, games, outdoor play. And the resources that will be required for this perhaps could be just existing staff who we might want to compensate with an additional stipend, given that they will work additional hours and during holiday time. We already have the center space. We might need some additional material if needed, and just a simple sort of system to manage and track registration and payments for this program. In terms of financial sustainability, we are saying that the main costs will be modest and will mostly be linked, like I said, primarily to staff time and basic material. In terms of pricing strategy, we are saying that we'll set a small daily or weekly fee, which is close to what parents might already be paying to the center or to the childcare program. But before we fix that price, we are going to informally sort of test our pricing strategy to see if this will actually work for the community. We will also maybe start with a pilot price with a particular price, but adjust it based on what we are hearing from the community members. We can also offer maybe discount for siblings. So we have sort of like 2 or 3 sort of students and children come in, but we give a slight discount depending on how many children are coming from a particular family. But really the idea is to set a fee that covers staff allowance and material and our basic costs, plus a small surplus if possible. Very quickly on ways to engage parents. So we said we can do WhatsApp groups, we can put notice boards at the center. We can also focus heavily on word of mouth through parents, given that we notice that that's a pattern and behavior within the community. Other engagement approaches that we've listed down is just announcing the program early with clear dates so parents have the opportunity to plan ahead in terms of finances for this program. We'll also just focus on keeping the group small and ask for feedback after the first round. And the risk and barrier for us particularly is around staff fatigue and like low uptake if the fees is a little bit higher. And potential mitigation strategies for that are around just starting things small, seeing what's resonating, iterating based on what we are hearing from the ground, and just maybe even limiting the number of days to avoid staff burnout. So we said 3 to 5 days, but basis kind of how the staff is also responding and what the actual workload is looking like, we may want to even kind of iterate on that a little bit more. So that's just one very high level example of what a testing plan for this revenue strategy could look like. If anyone else has also filled and is willing to share, happy to give you the screen sharing rights, and would love to see what you've also come up with. But also any questions, any thoughts, feedback, or even anything you would add to this that might be missing, would also love to hear from anybody on that as well. Or I'm sure someone might have already tried this. So if you think this was close enough to what you do or very far from what would work, would be happy to hear your reflections on that.
If we just think of what Priyanka took us through, can anyone relate to it? Is it something that they can complete and think of? Would they have thought of the same thing? Did they complete the same thing? Because many of us are looking at other revenue streams or more, which link to children coming for more care. Is there anyone else who thought of something different or something similar to what she just shared? Okay. So we have that example there for you guys to be able to. Yes, Karim?
Yeah, I was just saying that much similar
Right.
to the template what we experience in our context. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you, Priyanka. I think also we have a comment here about opportunities and risks from Naomi about the banks because they loan funds. And I suppose loaning funds or money to micro entrepreneurs and centers where income that they receive is unstable is a real challenge. And how do you mitigate that? I know that in South Africa, just to share there's a organization which specializes in money for sort of street vendors, tabletops, and those type of people. And what they do is the way they've managed to improve collections of their loans has been through changing. So they agree on a payment period, say 10 months, 12 months, whatever the payment period is. But the amount can be paid in any way. So, because what they found is that when people have lots of money, they pay a lot. When they have no money, then they can't pay. But sometimes they're ahead of their repayments, and in typical financial world, when people are behind on their payments, they get letters and notices. So in this case, this has helped them complete the loan. And what they find is that most people finish the loans that they've given before the specified time, even though when you look at it monthly, they're not necessarily paying the same amount. So maybe that's something for you guys that you can think about. Naomi, I don't know if you've thought about that already. Manman?
Yeah, I want to share another experience that we say that we encourage them to save their money. So we ensure that all our women entrepreneur, micro entrepreneur, they have the mobile banking or bank account. So as BRAC has their BRAC bank as well. So we ensure that they have the account in the BRAC bank, and also BRAC bank provide the loan. So if they need it for they extend their ECD center, they can take the loans. So
Yes.
that's actually helpful if the organization has their other institution, those can help them. So it's good there. So we are not providing the ECD support. We also ensuring that all have the bank account. And also another thing is the VLC, village savings group. So we also encourage that they should make a village savings group, the group that will be the micro entrepreneur and the parents together. So if needed, they can finance to their group members. So that's also we encourage for them.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I think we all have different dynamics, but I think the whole idea of this community of practice is how can we share the things that are working in our communities, working well, and how can we learn from others? And I think the space of collecting fees on the caregiver side and the space of how you manage your costs for your center on the side of the early learning teacher or practitioner is one space which there's always new information that we can share and share with each other. And I think what's quite important is that will sort of lead us to the next session. So I'd like Priyanka to share how we are thinking about how we run the peer learning sessions. Now, the idea of the peer learning session, I think it's more important to understand what it's about. A peer learning session is exactly what it means. It means how can we, those of us who are in these sessions, learn from each other? Now, we have some people who can speak because of their connectivity is better and others that can't. And we also recognize that some of us weren't able to join the first time, we joined this time, and similarly, those that joined the first time aren't able to join this time. But what we need for these peer learning sessions to be effective, we ideally would like to organize organizations in groups where you can learn the most from people with a similar either business model as yours, organizational model in terms of working with micro entrepreneurs or working in rural settings or working in urban settings, because we've got a variety of organizations. Others are not working directly in early learning, but are working more with programs that affect parents so that we can group you into peer learning sessions. But as I talk to that, how do we see the sessions running? Okay, so if we go to the next page and we explain, the idea is in the peer learning sessions, because we have them linked to the guided modules. So first session that we had a guided module on was on revenue opportunities. This session was on feasibility and understanding how the template works. So in line and keeping that theme, we thought the best way to run the guided sessions will also be 2 hours long. And each organization will have time to share with their group. So we thought it would be useful if we gave the sharing back, we structured it somehow so that you don't have a situation where one group takes all the time and others don't get to share what they have experienced so that others can learn from. So we're saying in these peer learning sessions, the structure is 3 key questions. And you keep it simple. You don't need to be detailed. You share your strategy and your overall challenges at a very high level. Then you exchange ideas and experiences. How have others approached the similar or different challenges to yourself? And then as a group, you identify, you reflect on what you have learned and perspectives. So these are the 3 questions which as an organization you will think about by yourself. And when you come to the session, you will come with those 3 questions. The idea here is not to be highly detailed, but rather to think of the main things you would like to discuss with others and hear from others, how they understand those things. Because often in sharing with others, they see things that we don't see because we work in the environment every day. So this will be the pre-work. When we meet then on at the peer learning session, which the first one is on the date, I think it's
11th of Feb, I think. It's on the 11th of Feb. Sorry.
So yeah, so the 11th of Feb is our peer learning session. what we would like before that session is to at least know confirmation of that one person from your organization will be in the session, but also what is your organization most interested in learning from? Those in their geography, those with a similar operating model like micro entrepreneurs, or those who, and geography, we mean like East Africa, West Africa, India, wherever you are in the world, that type of thing, because we understand there are similarities. Or is your organization open to learning from anybody? So we're not stopping learning from any person. And then what Priyanka and I will do is we will go around the groups and support. But the idea is for you to hear from each other. Okay, and so that will be on the 11th of February. Are there any questions, any thoughts about how that can be improved, or anything else you may need for the session? But the idea is not for the session to take up too much time for you prepping. It's just literally focusing on 3 questions. And I don't know, Priyanka, if you have anything you'd like to add.
Oh, I think nothing else from my side. I think it'll just be good to hear if what would make the peer learning session most effective for you. Would you like to do it with organizations in your country or across sort of regions, or do you want to hear from other organizations that are working in other urban contexts versus rural contexts? So would maybe as we are planning this, and we also just want to do it in a way that's most meaningful for you. So if you have any reflections or any ideas on what would make this peer learning more effective for you, we can maybe keep 5 to 7 minutes to discuss that before we close out and wrap up for today.
Okay, I don't know if there's anyone who has any comments about that or anything. I know that we're putting things on the link, and just it's important to make sure that everyone is able to listen or access. So even if your challenges are around listening and accessing those links and that information, because I think the information is quite important. Okay.
Yeah, I think the other thing is if the date really works for everyone, because we'd like most people to come in and share, given that this is really a peer learning opportunity and a space for all of you to learn from each other. So at least for people who are on this call, would you be able to make it to the same time on the 11th? And for people who weren't able to join, we can check with them. I can check with them separately. But if maybe even if you can just do like a raise of hand or show like an icon or just put in the chat, if you'd be able to make it to the next session, that'll also help us plan better.
Maybe what we can do, because I know people are a bit quiet, maybe when we send the email, we'll ask you to respond on email with the groups and the time. Because I think some of you have to go back and consult your fellow colleagues, because I think 2 people registered from each organization. And then that will help us plan ahead. And then we'll be able to speak to the individual groups that you're interested in learning more from, trying to ensure that everyone is together so that it works optimally. Okay. But that brings us to the end of our session today. And thank you very much for joining. And
Can I just open a poll very quickly before we let everyone go? Sorry, thank you. I've just opened a poll, which is essentially feedback for the session. Sorry, Sani, to cut you off. If you can very quickly take this, it just helps us with understanding if the session was useful to you and what we can do differently. If you can take 30 seconds before you go, that'd be helpful. Over to you, Sani, for any final comments as people fill this in.
Yeah, I mean, I think we appreciate your honesty here. because what we do recognize is that in our space, the fact that you're all here, you've taken time out, is we need to make sure that this is of value. And value is not about just the content in itself, but it's also how we deliver and everything else that allows you to fully participate in the way you need to get your value. Okay.
Can
I don't know.
everyone see the
Any
poll?
responses?
I was going to ask, can everyone see the poll? Is it launched for you? Okay, I see someone filling it in. So, okay, great. If you have taken the poll, please feel free to drop off, and we wish you a good rest of the day. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining and for engaging today.
Thank you, Bianca. Thank you, Zenfisa. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mama.
Take care.
Bye.